Conversations with today's newsmakers from Michiana's Morning News.
MNC News Time is now 7:20, and live on the Newsline, we have South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg not talking about the presidential campaign trail today. Instead, we have matters of the city to talk about, and the mayor last night presented to the Common Council a number of developments regarding the city's approach to alleviate homelessness. And here with the update is Mayor Pete. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing well. So what are some of the new ideas that you're talking about in terms of getting people off the streets, especially as we're heading towards the winter months?
So two really important things happening. One, that we wanted to make sure when it came to winter amnesty, housing people for the colder months, that we have a solution while it's still hot out. And so we are partnering with Hope Ministries to acquire and staff a facility that's going to be able to meet that function when we need it in the wintertime. But the really big news and really game-changing news is that we have identified funding through the state, over $2 million, that's going to allow us to add 60 permanent supportive housing units, both new construction and vouchers for housing in sites around the city. This will cut by 2/3 the number of unsheltered homeless in the city and move us much closer toward being able to house the remaining few dozen and get that number down toward as close to zero as possible. So, we've been talking and working on this issue for some time. I believe that this new funding represents a real game change, and we seek to have those units of housing online within the next 12 to 18 months.
Latest census figures show just over 100 homeless people in the city of South Bend. And Mayor, some critics already on social media this morning commenting, regarding your appearance in front of the council last night and in the plans that you announced. They're saying, well, what about all of our apartments and that complex, and the fact that South Bend police have been called there more than 150 times just within the past year. How does this plan differ from that, or is something that you've taken into consideration?
Well, Oliver Apartments represents a major success in housing some of the hardest to serve people in the entire county. Certainly there have been issues, as you would expect, with the few dozen people out of the 250,000 people in this community with some of the toughest addiction issues and other things that have made it difficult for them to secure housing. But without a facility like that, these folks would be out on the streets, perhaps even among the people we hear about creating issues on people's porches in their neighborhoods. And so the most important thing is to get somebody indoors. The challenges don't go away when you have a roof over somebody's house. That's why we're using this permanent supportive housing model that also gets them the services that they need. But there's no magic wand here. The important thing is that we reduce the number of people wandering the streets completely without shelter, and then that puts us in a position to start working the other issues too.
Eric Logan, police officer involved shooting death, not making top headlines these days, but is certainly a concern that remains in the city. And tonight there is another community forum discussing police force action and such related incidents. Let's talk about that meeting and what you're hoping to get out of it.
Yeah, certainly encourage anybody who is interested or concerned in how use of force works and what the policies are for the police to participate in this meeting. This is part of a series of discussions hosted by the Board of Safety. We want to make sure we're responding to the concerns we've heard by really incorporating feedback from the community and making sure everybody understands the policies and practices that we currently have and gets a chance to weigh in on how they might be different. So all of the community input that comes through these different sessions. Tonight's on the use of force. We had one earlier on body cameras, and we'll have more on issues like training and recruiting. All of that input is going to be gathered into a formal report brought before the board before the end of the year, and I believe it will lead to updates and perhaps significant changes in the policies and procedures that govern our public safety department. Remember, the Board of Safety really serves residents, but needs to hear from residents in order to understand those community priorities, as well as having a chance to make sure community members understand how these things work to begin with.
That meeting is from 6 until 8 o'clock tonight. That's taking place at the Charles Black Community Center. And Mayor, let's end on a positive note. We had a pretty good groundbreaking yesterday at Sites Park, and a new development that we're cities partnering with Notre Dame.
That's right. Notre Dame has set a goal of reducing their carbon footprint and increasing renewable energy. It's part of their faith commitment to stewardship environmentally. And we had a chance to partner with them to take advantage of the power that the river can create. So right there at Sites Park, a turbine is being installed that can generate electric power up to, I believe, 2 megawatts. And maybe the best part of it for residents of the city who may never see or even notice what's happening under the surface with the electrical work is that as part of this partnership, there's been a commitment of $1 million investment to make sure that Sites Park is better than it ever was. Now, in the interim, it's going to take some patience. There's a ton of work going on to prepare the site, and that's going to take some time. But when it's done, at that very key and really beautiful spot overlooking the waterfall there at the river, we are going to have the best Sites Park that we ever did. And it's in keeping with all the other different work that's happening at dozens of sites on the west, south, east sides, and downtown to make sure that our park system is the best it can be for the rest of this century.
All right. It's South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg. Thank you for joining us this morning here on Michiana's Morning News.
Michiana's Morning News with Mark McGill. Weekdays from 5 to 9 on 95.3 Michiana's News Channel.
Podcasts by Federated Media. Podcasts by Federated Media.